The galaxy had already judged humanity long before its emissaries ever arrived at Earth. Among the stars, tales circulated of a species bound by oceans, chained to gravity, and still fumbling with crude propulsion that spat fire and chemicals. Primitive, the councils of Zytherian declared. Unfit, echoed the voices of the Scylar hierarchy. To the old empires, humanity was little more than a curiosity, a young ray scratching at the threshold of the stars, to be ignored, patronized, or harvested. The first fleet came in silver, its hulls gleaming like shards of moonlight. They hung in orbit above Earth, blotting out constellations with their sheer number. The Zytherian commanders did not announce themselves with diplomacy or ceremony. They broadcast a single phrase on every channel, in every language their translation banks could render. Submit, primitive world. Kneel, or be taken. The words were received in silence. Governments panicked in their bunkers. News networks screamed with dread. Ordinary citizens stared at the sky, wondering if this was the end. But Earth did not kneel. It is said that when the human heart is pressed against the wall of inevitability, something stirs, something ancient, something merciless. That night, as alien warships cast shadows across the oceans, a hidden network awoke from slumber. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, sealed away from the knowledge of all but a few, a chamber came alive with the hum of forbidden machines. Lights flared across panels dusted with decades of neglect. Vault doors the size of skyscrapers shuddered as if something behind them had stirred. The project had been buried in myth, dismissed even within Earth's fractured governments. They called it the Black Program, a desperate endeavor born during the Cold War, nurtured in secret wars, and accelerated after humanity first glimpsed objects in orbit that were not of this world. It was not mere defense. It was vengeance in waiting. And now, the call had come. Above the Earth, the Zytherian fleet began its descent. Enormous carriers, longer than cities, moved into formation. Their commanders laughed at the scattered human fighter jets that scrambled into the sky, fragile toys flinging themselves against inevitability. "Observe how they resist," one alien captain mused. Like insects clawing at a flame. The first salvo fell. Entire defense networks blinked out under the fury of plasma storms. Satellites melted. Communications went dark. A hole was burned into the night sky, a message to the primitives: resistance is suicide. But far below, in a bunker where the air tasted of recycled iron and oil, a single command was given. Activate the Armada. It began with a tremor. From forgotten oceans, shadows rose. Old cargo ships, thought to be wrecks, split apart to reveal armored cores that had never known daylight. In abandoned deserts, what looked like ruined silos cracked open, revealing launch tubes carved deep into the mantle itself. On the dark side of the moon, where human eyes rarely looked, hidden bays unfurled like the petals of steel flowers, releasing craft that should not have existed. The world's people, watching the skies through handheld devices, through tears and prayers, witnessed the impossible. From hidden vaults, from the bones of forgotten wars, Earth's Black Armada emerged. Not sleek. Not elegant. But monstrous. The first ships clawed their way into orbit like beasts breaking free of a cage. Jagged hulls of layered alloys. Weapon spines bristling with projectiles no alien had ever catalogued. Engines that burned with unnatural fury. Each vessel bore the scars of humanity's desperation: welded patches, reinforced plating, designs that spoke not of beauty but of brutal efficiency. And yet, when they roared to life, the void itself seemed to recoil. The Zytherian fleet, caught unprepared, hesitated. Sensors scrambled to identify the crafts that surged upward like black thunder. Their databases returned nothing. This technology was not in the archives. This species was not supposed to wield such fire. The first clash came without warning. A human warship, designation Hades, lanced forward, engines howling. It locked onto a Zytherian frigate, one that had been descending leisurely into atmosphere, and unleashed a weapon the galaxy had long outlawed. A rail cannon slug, the size of a train, screamed through the void at near-light velocity. No shields could adapt, no armor could flex in time. The frigate was split in half, its two halves drifting like broken bones across the sky. On Earth, crowds who had braced for annihilation screamed in disbelief. A human ship had destroyed an alien vessel. Panic spread across the invader fleet. The Zytherian commander sneered, though unease coiled within his chest. Primitive tricks. Overwhelm them. End this. Obeying, the Silver Fleet swarmed. Hundreds of alien vessels converged, plasma lances burning paths of fire. Against them, humanity's Black Armada stood in scattered formation. Outnumbered. Outgunned. But not outwilled. Because humans had fought wars long before the stars noticed them. They had slaughtered one another with brutality that empires could scarcely comprehend. Every weapon, every stratagem, every cruel invention of war had been etched into their blood. The Armada carried all of it. Missiles screamed into the dark. EMP bursts detonated in choreographed waves, frying alien navigation. Some ships moved like bait, drawing alien fire only to detonate reactor cores in suicidal fury, dragging enemies into the void with them. The void lit up not with elegant precision, but with chaos, savage, unpredictable, relentless. And in that chaos, humanity thrived. By the battle's first hour, a dozen alien frigates lay in ruin. By the second, entire carriers were forced to withdraw under relentless fire. And on Earth, hope ignited. Where terror had lived, now came awe. They had not known the Black Armada existed. They had not imagined humanity capable of matching the void's monsters. Now, every burning wreck of an alien warship became a beacon, a declaration. Earth was not prey. It was predator. But the Zytherian were not the only watchers. Beyond Neptune's orbit, hidden in the shadows of the Kuiper Belt, another fleet stirred. Sleeker, deadlier, forged in the forges of the Scylar hierarchy, the old rival of the Zytherian. They had come not to conquer Earth, but to observe, to laugh at their enemy's conquest. Now they watched in silence as humans tore through the vaunted Zytherian fleet with barbaric fury. A counselor aboard the Scylar flagship whispered, his scaled lips trembling. They were supposed to be primitive. The fleet admiral's eyes narrowed as human warships carved their way through the Silver Armada, as wreckage tumbled into the burning atmosphere. Primitive? No. Something else. Something the galaxy had not prepared for. The wreckage of the Zytherian fleet drifted above Earth like a graveyard in the stars. Fractured hulls burned as they fell into atmosphere, streaking fire across the night sky. Entire cities watched the heavens, not with fear now, but with reverence. Humanity had stood against the impossible and not only survived, it had struck back. But victory had a bitter taste. For every alien ship torn apart, 3 human vessels lay gutted in orbit. The Black Armada was not a shining fleet of endless strength, it was finite, cobbled together from desperation, secrecy, and stolen glimpses of alien tech. Every missile fired was one fewer in storage. Every reactor pushed to maximum output carried the chance of collapse. The truth hung unspoken among the commanders of Earth's hidden war council. They had drawn blood, but at great cost. And the void was not yet silent. Far beyond the asteroid belt, the Scylar hierarchy fleet stirred. Their vessels were longer, narrower, like obsidian blades sliding effortlessly through the black. Their engines shimmered with quantum distortion fields, bending light into ghostly auras. For weeks, they had stalked behind the Zytherian advance, curious to see how their rivals would handle the conquest of Earth. The humans, to them, were not worth direct notice, a trivial species to be bartered, enslaved, or dissected later. But now the primitives had bared their teeth. On the flagship Vatherian, Admiral Kor's eyes glowed faintly as he studied the battle feeds. His command chamber was silent save for the thrum of the ship's living core. Around him, Sylar officers hissed uneasy whispers, their scaled hands flexing in agitation. "This cannot be," one said. "They breach Cytherian hulls with kinetic slugs." "Crude, but effective," Kor finished, his voice cold. "The primitives wield brutality the Cytherian do not understand. They fight not for conquest, but survival. That makes them dangerous." The counselor beside him flicked his tongue nervously. "Should we report back to the hierarchy? Or, intervene?" Kor's gaze lingered on Earth, now ringed with the dark, jagged silhouettes of human warships. His lip curled in disdain. "Send the fleet forward. If humans are allowed to rise from this, the galaxy will change." Hours later, humanity's battered armada detected new signals. At first, they thought the Cytherian reinforcements had arrived, but the patterns were different. Cleaner. Deadlier. An entire second fleet emerged from the black. Panic rippled through Earth's command. From bunkers deep beneath the crust, generals and strategists stared at the data streams. The surviving captains of the Black Armada spoke across fractured channels. They had expected the Cytherian to retaliate. They had not expected another empire to descend upon them so soon. "Two fleets," one officer muttered. "Will be ash before sunrise." But amidst the fear, a different voice rose, calm, deliberate. It belonged to Commodore Ilara Vance, commander of the Nemesis, one of the oldest and most formidable ships in the Armada. "Listen to me," she said, her voice resonating across the secure net. "The Cytherian underestimated us. The Sylar think themselves clever, but they're watching ghosts of ships that should never have existed. We cannot outlast them in firepower. But we can show them something they do not comprehend. Something only humans wield." Her words carried the weight of history, the knowledge of wars fought with desperation, the fury of a species that had never known peace longer than a breath. When the Sylar fleet broke into orbit, humanity was waiting. The first exchange was vicious. Sylar lances, beams that folded space into cutting ribbons, sliced through two human corvettes in seconds. Wreckage blossomed like dying stars. Yet, before the Sylar could celebrate, the Nemesis unleashed its hidden payload, a storm of subspace disruptors, experimental weapons Earth had barely tested. The void screamed. Sylar shields buckled. One of their cruisers lost cohesion, folding in on itself as its field collapsed. The aliens faltered. Not from fear, but from confusion. How could primitives deploy such weapons? The galaxy had forbidden subspace rupture technology millennia ago. To see it in the hands of Earth, a planet still fumbling with chemical rockets only decades earlier, was unthinkable. But the truth was harsh. Humanity had stolen and reverse-engineered every scrap of tech it could, testing in shadows, ignoring treaties it was never invited to sign. The Black Armada was a graveyard of alien science fused with human brutality. And now, it was tearing through the Sylar vanguard. Yet the hierarchy did not break easily. For every ship humanity crippled, two more pressed forward. Their formations were disciplined, their weapons honed across centuries of conquest. Slowly, they began to carve through the Armada's scattered defense lines. On Earth, the night skies burned with falling wreckage. Families huddled in basements, listening to the roar of debris tearing the atmosphere apart. In the silence between detonations, prayers rose, not to gods, but to the men and women fighting in steel coffins above their heads. In orbit, desperation took root. Human ships began ramming maneuvers. Captains ordered self-destructs at point-blank range, dragging Sylar cruisers into annihilation with them. Every explosion lit the void with defiance. Admiral Kor watched from the Vatharian, his jaw tightening. "They burn themselves willingly," he muttered. "As if death is a tool, not a fate." For the first time in centuries, the Sylar felt unease. But the battle was not yet decided. Deep within the Earth's command bunker, technicians shouted warnings. Long-range sensors revealed something worse than either fleet alone. The remnants of the Zytherian were regrouping. Their surviving carriers, humiliated and broken, had called for reinforcements. And reinforcements were coming. 2 alien powers. 2 armadas converging. The galaxy had dismissed humanity as primitive. Now, they came not to conquer, but to erase. To bury the memory of defiance before it could take root. And in the silence of the command chamber, Commodore Vance spoke the words that hardened every heart. Then we fight them both. And if the void must take us, it will remember we screamed louder. In the black expanse above Earth, 3 fleets now spiraled toward collision, the battered survivors of humanity's armada, the disciplined blades of the Scylar, and the vengeful return of the Zytherian. The stage was set for annihilation. The night above Earth was no longer a sky but a graveyard. Broken hulls drifted across the heavens like blackened bones, their fires streaking downward in mournful arcs. Yet no silence came. Engines roared. Weapons flared. 2 alien empires closed in like wolves scenting blood. The Scylar blades cut through orbit with precision, their fleets slicing apart the remnants of Earth's defenses. Behind them, the vengeful Zytherian reinforcements surged, glittering silver leviathans eager to erase their humiliation. And caught in between, humanity's black armada bled. Ship after ship fell, reactors gutted, crews lost to the black. The Hades, first to fire, now spun lifeless through orbit, her engines shattered. The Nemesis fought with fury, but her ammunition was nearly gone, her armor slagged by relentless strikes. From the command bunker deep beneath the Rockies, the Council watched the impossible unfold. 2 of the galaxy's great powers had converged on their world. It should have been the end. It would have been the end, had humanity been anything other than what it was. Commodore Ilara Vance stood on the bridge of the Nemesis. The air smelled of burned insulation. Red lights painted the steel in ghostly hues. Around her, officers struggled at their stations, voices hoarse, uniforms scorched. "Shields are failing," someone shouted. "Then let them fail," Vance snapped. Her eyes burned, not with despair, but with fury. "Redirect power to the void engines." The crew hesitated. They knew what she meant. The void engines were no ordinary drives. They were humanity's final gamble, an untested experiment born from desperate research, whispered of even within the Armada as suicide cores. But orders were orders. Hands moved. Switches slammed. Across the Nemesis, dormant systems came alive, thrumming with unnatural resonance. The stars outside flickered. Reality itself seemed to waver. On the Scylar flagship, Admiral Kor felt the disturbance ripple through his hull. His scales prickled as alarms howled. Space itself was shifting. His crew hissed in panic, their voices trembling. "They're distorting the void." "Impossible," Kor growled. "No primitive." Then he saw it. The Nemesis moved not like a ship, but like a wound in reality. Light bent around her hull. Weapons fire passed too close and vanished into nothing, swallowed whole. Even the Scylar's advanced targeting arrays struggled, unable to lock onto her with certainty. "What have they done?" whispered one officer. Kor's chest tightened. The humans had reached into places no empire dared. They were tearing at the very foundation of space itself. And then the counterstroke came. The Nemesis unleashed her void cannons. They did not fire in the way weapons should. Instead, reality buckled, collapsed, and reformed. Scylar cruisers that had been there a moment ago simply weren't. 1 second they stood proud, the next they were gone, erased, consumed by the shriek of the void. The Scylar screamed. For the first time in centuries, their fleet broke formation. Discipline shattered. Fear, raw and primal, spread through their ranks. And the Zytherian, witnessing the horror from the far side of the battle, realized too late what humanity had unleashed. They had mocked Earth as primitive, and now they saw the truth: primitives had no chains. They had no limits. They broke rules because they had never been taught to obey them. But fear could not stop vengeance. Both alien armadas converged on the Nemesis, desperate to tear it apart before its unnatural engines consumed them all. The battle became a storm. Every ship, every fighter, every weapon turned toward the monster that humanity had unleashed. The Nemesis staggered under the fury. Hull plates peeled away. Entire decks vented fire and screams into the black. Yet for every strike against her, she answered with annihilation. Her void cannons screamed again, ripping a Zytherian battleship into shreds of non-existence. Her engines twisted space, flinging enemy torpedoes back into their owners' hulls. But power had a cost. In the heart of the Nemesis, the void engines burned too bright. Alarms wailed across the ship. Engineers sobbed as readouts spiked into the red. "Commodore," a voice cried. "If we continue, the cores will collapse. We'll take the entire sector with us." Vance stood unflinching. Her hands gripped the rail as the bridge shook around her. "Then let the void remember," she said. "Let it remember Earth." The Council on Earth heard her final broadcast. Across shattered networks, across radios powered by failing generators, her voice carried not despair, but defiance. And in basements and shelters, across oceans and burning cities, humanity listened. "We were dismissed as primitive," she said. "We were told to kneel. But hear me now, people of Earth, the void itself kneels before us." Her words ignited something greater than hope. They ignited fury. Across the battered armada, captains and crews heard her and responded. One by one, crippled ships rammed into alien leviathans, detonating cores in suicidal fury. One by one, fighters dove into impossible odds, dragging enemies into death with them. The armada became not a fleet, but a storm of sacrifices, each blow tearing deeper into the alien armadas. The Scylar screamed. The Zytherian screamed. The void itself screamed. At last, the Nemesis burned beyond saving. Flames gutted her decks. The void engines howled with a sound no human throat could ever make. Commodore Vance stood tall as her ship became light. And then, the void collapsed. The explosion was not fire, not heat. It was absence, a tearing wound that dragged the Scylar and Zytherian fleets into nothingness. Ships vanished in silence, crushed into fragments, their screams swallowed whole. When the light faded, the sky was empty. The alien fleets were gone. Only wreckage remained, and the quiet whisper of Earth turning beneath. In the aftermath, the world wept. Humanity had lost nearly everything. The Black Armada was shattered. Billions mourned the dead. And yet, Earth still stood. No empire could claim it. No alien dared. For the story would spread. Across the stars, whispers would grow. The humans, dismissed as primitive, had fought back. Two mighty fleets had come, and two mighty fleets had screamed as the void took them. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same again. And somewhere, in the black beyond stars, the void itself remembered the name of humanity.